Hi everyone, welcome to another Hatton's Model Railways live stream. And today we're looking at overhead line equipment. We're looking at catenary. There's various different names for it, some of which we'll be going into today. Now, just a quick disclaimer, this is one of the trickier skills casts that we'll have been doing. So if you do fancy something simpler, do head over to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page for some great ideas for beginner skills. This is a little bit more advanced today, so I'd really recommend only undertaking this one if you have got some model railway skills already. You can learn a lot of those on our channels, and of course, if you want to find out more or want to get some more skills on this particular kit, don't hesitate to put a comment under the video or get in touch with our customer experience team too. But otherwise, let's get started as usual. So we're looking at the various equipment that makes up the overhead lines on the UK's rail network. We can see here the poles, or masts as they are known, holding up the electric wires, which then supply the locomotives with the electric current to power their motors and drive them along the track. This shot here being one of the more recent pole designs. You do see a few different types of these, but the ones we're looking at today come as part of the Pico range in 00 gauge. You can find very similar in N gauge from Dapol's range too. And these are poles found commonly across the UK from around the 1960s onwards. Again, have a look out there. There are a few different designs that you can see across the UK. So I've got some of the component parts already set up. I'm just using a cardboard base today, so I'm able to lift it up easily and show you some of the workings underneath too. But you will need some more heavy duty tools than usual. We will need a 5.5mm spanner. You'll also need a drill with a 3mm drill bit to locate these particular parts. But let's take a closer look at what you get in the pack. If you do want to find out more about the pack, do head over to the link in the description there. There's info on all of the components of the Pico catenary kit. And this is a mast as they come out of the packet. You'll notice that it's got a base for sitting on your layout here, but then it has a securing mount. This is 25mm long, and this fits under your layout and gives it security once it is screwed tight and screwed in. You take off the screw and the washer there when mounting this into your layout and then putting it on. We have the various equipment here, more of which we'll be adding to this very shortly on our demonstration piece over to our left. So first of all, the important part is how and where to site the different masts themselves. I'm just going to move that a little bit more into the shot for you there so you can see it a little bit better. And you can see that I've already attached two of these, in fact 3 of these, to our cardboard pieces there, temporarily putting the track down. This is recommended when you have laid the track on your layout. So put the track down first, secure the track, and check out the videos on our channel for more information on how to do that. If you are using cork underneath your track, do put cork where you intend to put your overhead catenary masts too, as they need to be the same height on the bottom as the track needs to be too. So if you're putting cork under your track, put it under your catenary too, just to make sure that's all the same height. As for working out how far they need to be from your rails, do pick up one of these. Now they come part of the pack that Pico sell, or they come separately available too. You'll notice there's a few different areas and items on this. We have the holder for drilling where the masts need to go. And then we actually have the checker there, so you can just check that's within gauge by balancing that on the inside of our rails and just making sure that the mast is right up against the inside of that, as we can see on the left of our screen there. So once you've allocated your hole, I'll just spin that around so you can see this a little bit better. Again, I wouldn't recommend using cardboard for this normally, but it does just give me something that I'm able to show you really easily on the stream today. So taking that out, you'll notice that I've already pre-drilled a hole there. this mast gives the correct position, this tool, sorry, gives the correct position for that hole to be drilled. It's a 3mm hole that you need to locate there. And once that's in, we take the washer and the screw off our mast and then locate that securely in the hole that we have created. Once that's in, we then go underneath the mast and just tighten that up. Make sure that screw and the washer there are tight against your board as possible. The main part you'll be able to do, as I'm doing here with my fingers, but then once it gets really tight towards the end is when that 5mm spanner will come into play. Just make sure that's really tight there. The join underneath this mast really does need to be as tight as possible. So I'll take that one out of there now just to show you how that fits in. Now, looking at the different distances between these particular masts, I'll just turn that around for you again there. It really does depend on what part of the railway you're running on. Peco do supply 5 different lengths of the overhead wire, this being the shortest at 20 centimetres that we see here in front of me. The longer the wire, the faster the section of line it is that it is operating on as a general rule. In some cases too, if there's straighter line, even at slower speeds, it will have the longer sections. And the guide that comes with the pack or is available separately gives you far more than I ever could on which wires to pick there. You do get 5 of these sections in a pack. These are pre-made, and these clip straight on to the wires, which we'll be doing in a second. Just showing you there, these are the brass connections that you do get to go on these particular pieces. So again, you can find out the full list of these available if you follow that link in the description there. I'll just make sure I'm not getting my workbench here too messy, make sure I can keep an eye on every part that I'm going to need. So with these being 20 centimeters, there's a couple of ways you can check out exactly where you need to mount your mast. Now you can use a good old-fashioned steel ruler to make sure you've got the correct distance there between the masts, measuring right from the center of each mast. We have that there at 20 centimeters. You can just about see that on the camera on our screen. But there's also a really useful secondary part of the tools that Peco have provided. So putting in again our marker on the first mast that we have placed, putting that into place there on the track against the tower, just making sure that's flat as it should be. Make sure it's clipped into. There we go. Then we would measure, we would clip the contact wire, as we can see here, round the little piece in the board there. It's a tricky one to clip. Don't worry, it's not staying there permanently, so once it's on, it'll be okay. And then just putting the second piece on the track too, so you can move it around. You can see that I've already done this on this particular piece before I came on air. It can be quite cumbersome to do these, hence me mentioning at the start of the stream that it is a little bit tricky, this one. But if you fancy something that needs a little bit more advanced skills, it's really something that you can do. So you'll see there that that then matches up, and that's also a great way to measure the length of the catenary that you'll see too. You'll see at this end, not quite so much at that end, but it's exactly the same, that this wire is now balanced in both of the pieces. So we know exactly how far apart our masts need to be. So at the moment, there's no glue at the moment. One thing you will need a little further on is a decent soldering iron. It's not something I'm going to be showing you today on the stream. It's a little bit unsafe to have soldering irons in the studio here, but I will go through how to do that Otherwise, you don't need any standard glue, you don't need any super glue or anything like that. It is recommended if you really want to secure the masts down, but if you've tightened those bolts and the washers tight underneath, you shouldn't need any further adhesive to put that in. So now comes the tricky bit. Now becomes the part where we actually need to start putting our wire in. Now, in real life, the wires don't run entirely straight over the track. If you have a look out there, there's various different documentation, including Pico's own manual on how this is done. But they do run a very slight zigzag across the rails. This is so the pans, the top of the pantograph on our loco there does have the even wear. You can imagine it just running like that along the different parts of the pantograph as it goes up and down the rails, rather than causing a groove if it is a completely central line and giving uneven wear on the pantograph there. So just making sure that they do come from one side of the rails. They don't go outside the rails, but one side of the rails to the other between the pantographs in a zigzag formation. In fact, Pico's guidebook says that far better than I could, so I'll just give you a very sneak preview there of how this is set up. And of course, you do get fully illustrated details there on how to set these up too. So I would recommend picking up this manual, but you do get it as part of the starter pack too, which again, you can pick up from our website if you do want to follow that link in the description. So first, we are putting in our top wires. So these sit just inside. I'll see if I can do you a bit of a close-up there first. You'll see just on the top of the catenary there. Hopefully that zooms in on this camera. If not, I apologize. You can just about see it at the top. There's a tiny little loop there that the top of the wire sits in. Now, this is the curved section of wire too. The flat section does go on the bottom, so the locomotive maintains continuous pickup. We're just sliding that through that hole. Send it right over and then pull it back through so it sits in the other hole too. So we've already got the start there of our overhead line. It's really starting to come in together. You can see it a little bit better if I hold it on the side there. It is quite loose at the moment, as you can see. We've still got some of the important parts to fit on. Couple of great questions coming through in the chat there too. You can use this system if you wish to be a fully powered set of catenary for your railway. A lot less locomotives now do have the ability to pick up the electric power from the catenary as they do in real life. A lot of them do have this system purely as a cosmetic detail there. So I really would recommend having a look and seeing if your locomotives are compatible before deciding whether to have this as a pickup system. I'm certainly building this today with the intention of it being a purely cosmetic system for the locomotives to run underneath. Whilst we've got this here now, without any further pieces attached, it's a fantastic time to just check some of our locomotives. I'll bring in our Hornby Class 87 here and just check the catenary height versus the height of the pantograph. You may find again that some of these pantographs do stretch a little higher than the catenary, but they will run against it once it is all clipped in. So it's really important to secure this in place, which is what we are about to do. You may find on some locomotives that you do need to pin the pantographs down a little bit just to make sure the locomotives run underneath them without causing any damage to the catenary or the locomotive's model pantograph itself. So I'll just take that down and take that away so we can carry on with our build. Now, this is the really fiddly bit that we're coming up to now. And now we are going to put the registering arms onto the catenary that we have on the side there. So these are the very tiny little pieces that we can just about see over here, the registration arms, sorry. And these clip onto the actual arm of the mast, but also clip onto the loop on the catenary that we have there too. So it's going to be a two-part operation, and it is a little bit of a tricky one. I'm sorry if my hands get in the way. I'll try and show you it step by step. So I'm clipping on there. You can just see that I've now added the first piece on the far end of the loop. I'll try and raise that a little closer to the camera there. Unfortunately, it did fall off on the way up. They are very, very tricky to move around. I wouldn't recommend moving your layout as I'm doing here when you are putting these together. Hence the importance there of making sure the masts are as tight as possible on your layout. So I'll just give that a second go there. And I've got to admit, this is one of the trickiest things I've done on one of our live streams so far. So if I get it first time, I will expect a round of applause. Maybe from myself. So just making sure that it's a very complex connection. Just making sure that it sits there. And you'll see that it's not perfect to start off with, but we have got the initial components now in place. Or we did until it came away. Just again, we'll give that a second go there. You can see now why it's recommended that you do paint your track and do any other detailing on your track before you put in these particular pieces too. Just again, making sure, absolutely certain that that is sat in there as so. So you'll see now, just about at the bottom there, you'll see the registration arm is now sat holding up the wire as it does in real life. This is where the soldering comes in. Now, you will be soldering some wires together. You'll be soldering the end of the registration arm onto the different parts that we have here, just making sure this is a fully secure connection. And again, at the next end of the wire that we have here. You can see there's a little bit of overlap in the wire too. This is entirely authentic. Where the different parts of the wire join, there is a slight overlap in these particular different pieces. And you'll indeed notice that there is two holes at the top there for the different sections of wire to sit in. So when you are adding your next piece of wire, you can thread that through in exactly the same way. Just making sure that comes in there. And that will then attach on to the registration arm there too, as per so. So that will join on and then act as your next section of wire, as you can see coming in here. So then, as we said, your next steps are to make sure everything is fully secure. You will then solder the various parts together just to make sure you've got a permanent connection that you can't really damage. As you can see at the moment, before I've done that, it is very, very fragile indeed. You've already spotted it come off at 1 or 2 times on the stream already. So as soon as you can do, get to your soldering iron out and just make sure you put a tiny little bit of solder to join those together and make sure those connections are really secure. If you're looking at building these on curves, you will find that the catenary wire actually goes centrally through the curves. Rather than bending and following the route of the curve, it will actually continue in a straight line. So you do need more masts for that, and that's a great place for these shorter pieces to come in useful too. So whilst it is fiddly, I can see a couple of you in there in the chat saying it's fiddly, and it really is fiddly to put together. It really can have a great effect. It enhances any layout of a modern era with systems like this coming in from the 1960s onwards with these type of masts that we see here. And the basics of it, the actual knowledge is really, really simple. It's measuring out just how far you need between your different pieces of catenary that we have here today, and just then how to join them onto the separate boards and putting them together. If you do fancy it, but you'd like to learn a little bit more, if you're placing an order with us, do pick up a copy of the Pico Shows You How guide. It's only £1 and it's product code SYH26 on our system. This gives you a full history of operations with overhead lines in the UK, as well as some of the terminologies used for the different pieces. I'll just bring that into the other camera there so you can see it a little bit more close up. You can see some of the terminologies there. Again, some of the history and full installation guides on how to put these particular pieces together, as you can see here. And this really does go into depth, whereas I've given you a very basic overview today. The Pico guide will give a full guidance here, including that section we mentioned there towards the end, just making sure to solder the parts together, as we can see here, and also just crimp them into place to give a full sense of security there and make sure that they stay in place on your layout too. So I hope I've given you some inspiration. Like I say, it is one of the tricky skills to show on our channel, and it's certainly a tricky skill to do live, as you've seen on our stream today. But I hope I've given you a little bit of a flavour of just what's involved in setting up the Pico catenary system. There is also the Engage dapole catenary system, which is available too. And if you click the link in the description, you'll be able to see the information on both the Pico system, such as the starter set that we see here on the screen now, and the dapole Engage system, which is installed in a very similar way. So I hope you've enjoyed the stream. If you do want to find out more, don't hesitate to pick up the guide from our website, as you can see here, or get in touch with our customer experience team, who'd be more than happy to give you a hand too. If you have enjoyed the video, don't hesitate to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page too, where you can find out more Skillscast videos such as this. Of course, we've got the real railway profiles and all the latest model railway news there too. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.